And now, Dane Forgione with a spoken word piece. It's easier not to be wise, and measure these things with your brains. I sank into Eden with you, alone in the church by and by. I'll read to you here, save your eyes. You'll need them, your boat is at sea. Your anchor is up, you've been swept away. And the greatest of teachers won't hesitate to leave you there by yourself, chained to fate. I alone love you. I alone tempt you. I alone love you. Fear is not the end of this. I alone love you. I alone tempt you. I alone love you. The Performers I Know, episode 36 with Amy Herzberg, coming at you. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are performers I know. All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for another fun-filled episode of The Performers I Know. This is episode number 36. This week, we have a very talented individual as our guest. She is an actress, choreographer, and she is here today and raring to go. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Amy Herzberg. Amy, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
No problem. So, once upon a time, actually, much like our last episode with Christine Stoddard, Amy, I met her last month meaning around June. 'Cause we are recording this on the 15th of July. This was a audition for our Murder at the Mansion um, set piece. Now, while we went forward in a different aspect, one of my other proofs of concept, the cult at Cambridge, my scene partner had to drop out due to circumstances beyond my control. I asked Amy if she can do a British accent, and she could. So she jumped right into the part of the seductress, and she did a fantastic job. I was very happy with how it turned out. So, yes, here we are. So, Amy, my first question to you, as I ask all of my guests, what got you bitten by the acting bug? What got you into doing theater and singing and choreography and acting and all that lovely stuff?
I think it's two things. The first thing is that as a kid, I just loved the attention. I loved attention and anime. And I like sang all the songs, all like the cute songs in the anime series. And I would just like hold performances in the living room for my parents who were, pretty much bound to see me because they had nowhere else to go. But then like professionally as a career was when I saw Wicked, which is like the most basic answer ever. But like I was 14 and I went to London for the first time and I saw Wicked on the West End on stage. And it was incredible. It's the music, the choreography, it's all so big and it's so wonderful and everybody is so talented that that kind of shifted me into like, oh, I want this as a career now.
You're actually the first guest that I've had that has been to the West End. I have to ask you, is it as immense and immersive as Broadway is in terms of walking around and seeing the different theaters, or would you say that it's different in a way?
I definitely think it's a slightly different experience. But overall, like when you get into the theater, it's the same show. right? Like Wicked is Wicked on Broadway or in the West End, but being on the West End is a slightly different experience, because you don't get the buzz of New York City right before you get into the theater.
Right. So, as I said at the top of the show, Amy stepped in very short notice to play the seductress, and it was a very fun time. I enjoyed it. Is that the first time that you've had to step into a role on short notice, or has that happened to you before?
That has actually happened before. Actually, my first time I had my off Broadway debut, and it was because I did an audition, and then like during the audition, the casting director told me, she was like, "Listen, we're now casting because someone dropped out, and you need to like be fully off book and like know all your lines and all the songs in 4 days. Can you do that?" And I was like, "Absolutely, I can. I want the job." And so in 4 days, I knew all the songs, I knew my harmonies, I knew my lines, I had my costume, and I did it.
Now, was this the magical journey of our Arlecchina?
Yes, it was.
You know, that sounds like a because I saw a picture of a marquee with you underneath it, and it looked like an extremely interesting show title. Could you give us a little synopsis of what that's about?
Absolutely. So this show um talks about like the main heroine is Arlecchina, and she is it's kind of more like it's a kids show, but it's complicated. And this character, she's a butterfly, and she's basically like going around trying to like better the world around her, and like talk to all of these different characters and kind of like show them a better world and better options.
So kind of sort of adjacent to like say an Alice in Wonderland, where somebody meets different characters on a journey.
Yeah, very much Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, okay. Well, that's very interesting. You know, I it's always very refreshing and very interesting to look at people's credits, especially on casting networks, and you see something that you've never seen before, like, oh, I'd love to learn more about this. Was Magical Journey, was that something that came that was written like a local person, or was there more of a germination period for it?
So I came on right at the end, but it was the second rendition of the show. Like they did it the year before as like kind of a workshop thing, and then the year after they did it like in Theater Row off Broadway, like proper big production, lights and costume. And it was written by she's actually an Israeli artist, and she moved here to New York, and she started working on her show here.
Oh, okay. You know, it's funny that you mentioned Israeli because one of the questions that I had for you is you were in a production of The Wild Party, and it looks like that was from Theater International Europe. Was that a Israeli production?
Yes, it was an Israeli production. So I was born and raised in Israel, and I moved to New York City like 2 years ago.
Okay. Um, you know, I because there's two different versions of The Wild Party, I believe.
Yes,
Which version was this?
it's the Andrew Lipa version.
Oh, okay, yes, yes. So, you know, is was there a stark difference between performing because a lot of people that I've interviewed, I can't really say that they've done a show outside of the United States. Is the process a little bit different out of the United States in terms of putting on a show, advertising, rehearsal, or would you say it's more of it's the same as putting a show on, say, in New York City?
I mean, nowhere is like New York City. But as far as the process is concerned, it's the same, and it's completely different. It's the same because we're talking about like we're doing a show, we're memorizing the lines, we're doing the dance, and we sing, and then we put on a show. But the way it works, like the day to day stuff, are it's very different. It's the work culture that's the main thing that makes it different. Like for example, in New York, and I think maybe in the US in general, um, like you would have your director or your musical director and your stage manager, and you wouldn't, if you had like a question about a certain aspect of your character or singing, you might not go to the director directly if it's like a big production. You might go to like the assistant director first, or like maybe consult your colleagues before you start talking to anyone on the team. But in Israel, like right after we finished rehearsal, like the assistant director, the director, the musical director, we all go and drink together like after the first day of rehearsal. So
Fun.
like I could just like text the director like, hey, I had this thought about my character and just send this out. Like I have all of their personal numbers to this day. Like it's so in that way, the work culture is what makes it different.
Okay. And you were a choreographer on that show.
Yes, I was a choreographer, and I also played Nadine in that show.
Ah. Now, would you say like that's one of the more difficult shows to choreograph, or did it come a little more natural to you?
Um, it was definitely the most rewarding show I ever choreographed. It was definitely one of the hardest too, because the Wild Party, the Andrew Lipa version, the one that was off Broadway, it's a dance musical. So similarly to like Chicago, which is another famous example, like it leans a lot on the music and the dance versus like a storytelling. Like if you go see Dear Evan Hansen, it's all about the story. There's like maybe one little dance number. So it took a lot of time, and I literally, there was one dance that I it literally came to me in a dream. I woke up and I was like, I have this dance, and
Somebody write this down. Somebody write this down.
absolutely, like I literally, like I woke up and I put my phone down and like started recording and like did the dance moves like in my living room, so that next time I show up for rehearsal, I have it.
A lot of a good portion of the scripts that I've written have come to me in dreams. And I've said this before, but I would wake up and be like, I gotta write this down. I gotta write this down before I forget about it. So I can definitely see that kind of thing. And it's
So yeah,
always,
that's exactly the same.
yeah. So yes, Amy kept going along, and it looks like you've done a kind of Romeo and Juliet concept now twice over, because I'm looking at my notes here. And you were in Romeo and Juliet the musical as the prince. But then I also
Mm-hmm.
see Lovers on the Balcony where you played Juliet. So were these kind of like the same stories, or were there like stark differences?
They were very similar in a way. So the Romeo and Juliet, I did like a rock musical. So we sang Shakespeare to rock music, and it's as cool and as terrifying as it sounds. Um, but then Lovers on the Balcony, it was a short musical that incorporated different lovers from like different famous lovers. So like Romeo and Juliet, and then we had Cleopatra, and so we had all of these different stories that kind of like collided into
Oh,
one
okay. So
piece.
like an ensemble piece.
Yes.
I see. That's very interesting. 'Cause, because I saw little snippets of the Romeo and Juliet musical that you did, and it just seemed like very like upbeat and almost kind of like a Hamilton-ish kind of
Mm-hmm.
rap style.
Yes, I would definitely say that was the vibe.
That it did seem like quite the vibe
Yes.
for sure. Oh man. Yes. So as I mentioned, um, well, as we record this, it is July 15th. And when this airs, it would be around October or November. The called at Cambridge. We're going to be premiering it in August, so I'm very excited about that. But that was quite the experience. What was it like playing a more seductive character, a more, bewitching kind of beauty?
Fun. It's always so fun to like play the quote unquote bad guy, but like for especially for women, I feel like when we play the bad guy, we don't get like this like tough, muscly type of person. We get this like seductress, this a woman who uses her sexuality as a weapon. And it's just fun to be the one who's like, yes, I'm calling the shots in this scene.
Yeah, I definitely saw it as, my character, Malcolm Daniels, thinks he's in control, but it becomes very clear that he is absolutely not in control.
Mm-hmm.
And watching back the video, the I really the I thought we had very good chemistry together. It was fantastic, and you just it was flawless. It was absolutely flawless.
Oh, thank you. You don't see it, but I'm blushing.
Oh wow. Uh, my check is in the mail for you for that. Yes, but so this question is a little out of left field, mostly because I stumbled upon this clip almost by accident. Now, you and your husband, you have like
Mm-hmm.
a kind of like a recording studio?
So my husband, he is a musical theater composer.
Oh, really?
Um,
Oh,
yes, he composes musical theater, which is kind of like um a, a thing we do together. And he sometimes when he records demos or he's working on a project and he needs some, then I he has a singer that lives in his house who can help with that.
honey, can you come here a moment?
Like literally, yes. It's like, would you mind just recording this one line? Or because sometimes, when he's composing for women, he's like, well, I don't know how that would sound like in a woman's voice. Would you mind singing this part for me just for a quick second so that I can see how it sounds like? And I'm like, okay, sure.
Now, of course, the next question would have to be, did you guys meet during a show?
So we actually met in a ballet class.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when I've been dancing in the same ballet studio for years, dancing classical ballet. And my husband, when he was 18, he decided he was gonna try and see if he can do ballet because he saw Billy Elliot and he thought it looked kind of cool. So maybe he can do that. And so he showed up to my dance studio, not knowing anything, an 18-year-old, like an 18-year-old man, not knowing anything. And so my dance teacher came up to me and I was like kind of helping her with like the kindergarten kids. So she was like, hey, look, it's basically the same. All you have to do is tutor him a little bit, and he knows just about as much as the kindergartner, so you'll be fine. So, and we had like a little showcase by the end of the year. We did he actually stayed in that studio for 2 years, and we have cute pictures from those shows.
You know, you know, it's lovely to me when people who are like part of a family, like mother and son, brother and sister, husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, are able to collaborate and make such wonderful things. My guest on the last episode, Christine Stoddard, her boyfriend Aaron Gold does that sort of thing too. And I think it's great that your husband does that. I did not know. Has he written any kind of musicals or just composed?
Yes, we actually worked on a musical together a couple years ago. It's called When You Dance. Um, and we did that one. I spoke to a friend about how we met, like in a ballet class, and it was like this whole turmoil of how we met. And she said, "Wow, that sounds like a musical." And I told him that she said that, and he was like, "Oh my God, that's a genius idea!" And he
He
started
woke up in the
writing
middle of
his
the night. Amy, write this down, Amy, write this down.
exactly. exactly. And he wrote this down, and he had a full like one act show, an hour and a half of like songs, book, everything. And he approached a director in a French theater that he was kind of familiar with, and the director loved the piece, and he was like, I would love to produce it and put it in, like put it in theater. And so we worked on this together. I helped with the rewrites of the book, and I also choreographed it. And I was also it was a musical for two people. So I was one of them, and he was the other one.
Well, there you go. There, that's wow, that's amazing. Um, I can't, like I said, absolutely fantastic when people who love one another very, very much can create such great projects. I would like to see like if there's any kind of like footage of that because that I'm very intrigued with that sort of thing.
Well, keep in if you do find the footage, it's out there on YouTube. We were so young. Like I say a couple of years ago, but me and my husband have been together for 7 years now, so it's been a while.
Okay.
And it was um like I also want to say that it was like absolutely incredible to work together, but it also wasn't easy because art feels personal. And so like when you work together and you're both so passionate about what you're doing, and then the director says a comment, or maybe like he's the composer and I'm the choreographer, and I'm like, I think we should do this dance here, and he's like, no, because I really want this part of the music to shine. And it's like, it's so hard, but also like we both love it so much. So it's awesome and it's hard at the
And
same time.
fantastic. I'm looking at your resume here, and I see a title, and this is I am very curious about this because you are not the first person that I've seen that has done this particular. I don't know if it's a show or if it's like a just a recurring thing. It's called a sketch of New York. I've
Mm-hmm.
known several people who have told me like, oh yeah, I'm doing a sketch of New York. Is that are those like original kind of like scenes, or is it a self-contained show? What can you give me a little synopsis on that?
Absolutely. So a sketch of New York um, has it's a show. It's sketches about New York, um, and it's been running for like 17 years now. Um, and the show changes constantly. Like they add new sketches, they pull out old sketches that they had, but they do it. I think like like almost everyone I know has done this show at a certain point, because they always look for new people, and they have this lovely community of people who stay in touch and still work together and are still looking to work together. And usually the people who do this are very new to New York. It's usually like their first, second, third gig, and we're just like looking for something to put on our resume. And it's literally like this at this point, I think after 17 years, it's almost like this cult show for newcomers, new actors coming to New York.
Oh, so kind of like, breaking yourself in. Like, if you want to make it, you got to be in Sketch in New York.
Yeah, it's a fantastic way to get a start in the city and actually do a show, but also get to know people who are in the same place as you, form that community, get some very valuable advice about your headshots, your resume, your agents. Have something to show an agent if you're like, hey, I would love it if you could come see my show. I'm in a sketch of New York. So yeah.
Fantastic. Love it, love it, love it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I see by the old clock on the wall that we are starting to run out of time. This has been a very good interview, but all good things must come to an end. So, Amy, my last question to you, as I ask all of my guests, if somebody were to come up to you and say, "Hey, Amy, I want to be a singer, an actress, a dancer. I want to compose my own musical. What would be the piece of advice that you would give them to best succeed in that endeavor?
Well, first of all, I'm a vocal teacher, so I can help with singing.
Oh, well,
Um,
there you go.
but other than that, I would say get to know the industry you're in. If you're performing in New York, there are so many resources you can go to, so many workshops like actor therapy. There's one called Flourish. Like there are so many resources here. But if you're working in LA or even like in Colorado, the industry might be a little different. So get to know your industry, meet people, go to events, make those connections, and also obviously work very hard on your craft. Apart from the business side, which we always have to know, get to know the industry, the people, the works, we also have to be very good at our craft. So if you're looking for a vocal teacher, call me. And for dance, you just gotta get up, you gotta go to the studio, you gotta dance, you gotta look for those acting lessons, and yeah, just be a well-rounded person, actor, performer, and that's the only way to do it.
That is a perfect summation of it, definitely. I might have to take you up on that singing thing because, as I've said in many episodes, I'm a terrible singer, but I make up for it by having such a great radio voice. Well, anyway, as the outro plays us out, I want to thank my guest, Amy Herzberg. Amy, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Hey, yes, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you all in the next episode. So long. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are performers I know.